ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge in Allah from shaitan, the rejected one. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. With the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. I greet you with the universal greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we are looking at section 3 and section 4 of Yusuf alayhi salam. We discussed the first part of the jealousy of the brothers in our last segment, and today we will see what happens to him after he was bought from the slave market. From verse 21 we read, "The man in Egypt who bought him said to his wife, 'Make his stay among us honorable. Maybe he will bring us much good, or we may adopt him as a son.' Thus did we establish Yusuf in the land, that we might teach him the interpretation of stories and events. And Allah has full power and control over his affairs, but most among mankind know it not." So we see that Yusuf a.s. was bought from the slave market by the Aziz, a righteous person, a person that had some integrity in the society, and he was a high-ranking official of the king of the time. And we see that he told his wife, "Make his stay honorable, and maybe we can even adopt him as a son." And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us again, yeah, وَكَذَلِكَ مَكَّنَّا لِيُوسُفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. In such a way we made Yusuf alayhi salam established in the land. He learned to know about the society in which he lived in. He learned the workings of the society because he was in the house of the Aziz, who was involved in the politics of the land. And وَلِنُعَلِّمَهُ مِنْ تَعْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ. And we taught him the interpretation of stories and events. He knew the interpretation of dreams, but he also knew how to analyze situations, to do the right thing according to the assessment, after his assessment. And his assessment was a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah has full power and control over his affairs, but most among men know not. When Yusuf attained his full manhood, we gave him power and knowledge. Thus do we reward those who do right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when Yusuf alayhi salam attained maturity, when he was mature and he was physically and mentally mature, we granted him hukma wa ilma. We granted him power and knowledge. And that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards those who are muhsineen. وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards the righteousness with power and knowledge in this case. And in our times as well, that if we are of fulfilling the category of being of the muhsineen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we pray that He will grant us some of His bounties as well. But now we read in verse 23, "But she in whose house he was sought to seduce him from his true self. She fastened the doors and said, 'Now come, thou dear one.' He said, 'Allah forbid, truly thy husband is my Lord. He made my sojourn agreeable. Truly to no good come those who do wrong.'" So we see Yusuf alayhi salam was in the house of the Aziz, and the wife of the Aziz took a liking to him, and she planned to seduce him. So she locked the doors. وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. She locked the doors and says, وَقَالَتْ هَيْتَ لَكَ. So she called Yusuf alayhi salam unto herself. Now when Yusuf alayhi salam was in the situation of temptation, he said, قَالَ مَعَاذَ اللَّهِ. He remembered Allah and said, "Allah forbid this. Your husband has been good to me. I cannot betray your husband, and I cannot betray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the greatest of all." And he continued to say, "Truly to no good come those who do wrong. إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الظَّالِمُونَ." To no good come those who commit sin, to those who do wrong. So he realized that committing zina is something that is a grievous wrongdoing, and by you committing zina, you will basically bring yourself to ruin. We can look at a cross reference about zina. We look at Surah 17, verse 32. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تقربوا الزنا إنه كان فاحشة وساء سبيلا. Nor come near to adultery. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا, do not come near to adultery, for it is a shameful deed and an evil opening the road to other evils. So we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly tells us that coming near to zina is an evil road that will take you to do more wrong. So we see that zina is a serious scourge to society. It causes so much wrongdoing. It causes breaking up of the families. It causes people to lose their dignity, their purity. It causes unwanted pregnancies. It causes ill diseases. It causes children being brought up fatherless. It causes chaos upon chaos. These are just some of the things that I've just mentioned offhand. But if you think about it and analyze the problem of zina in the society, we'll see that it is enormous. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا zina. Don't even come near to it, because it is such an evil wrongdoing that affects society in such a detrimental way. Coming back to the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, if we continue, so we see that Yusuf alayhi salam protected himself from zina, and this is Yusuf alayhi salam serves as an icon of modesty, of spirituality, of purity and chastity, someone that all people can acknowledge and can find as a role model, that he's put in the Quran as an example of a person who what stood and protected himself from immorality in society. Then in verse 24, Allah goes on and say, and with passion did she desire him, and he would have desired her, had he not, but that he saw the evidence of his Lord. So we see that it was a natural indication. She desired him, but he would have desired her as a natural inclination for attraction between male and female that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in human nature. But he says, but that he saw the evidence of his Lord. But because he saw the evidence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is something that's going to ruin him spiritually, it causes so much harm in society, it can only bring him bad and no good in any way, he realized that the best thing to do is to serve Allah rather than get involved in fulfilling his desires. So when he saw the evidence of his Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him. Thus did we order that we might turn away from him all evil and shameful deeds. So Allah protected him from all shameful and evil deeds and all tricks that the wife of the Aziz and the society threw towards him. Thus did we turn away from him all evil and shameful deeds, for he was one of our sincere and purified servants. Innahu min ibadina al-mukhlasin. He was the pure servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was pure from all types of corruption. So we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him from the snare of the wife of the Aziz. Her name is not given in the Quran, and according to tradition, they say it's her name was Zuleika. But we're not going to go discuss that. But we were not going to take that further in this discussion. If we read further, in verse 25, so they both raised each other to the door, and she tore his shirt from the back. They both found the Lord near the door. She said, what is the fitting punishment for one who formed an evil design against thy wife, but prison or grievous chastisement? So we see Yusuf alayhi salam was running away from the advances of Zuleika. And we see that when they came to the door, she tore his shirt. And when the door was open and they met their husband there, she turned and twisted the story. It shows that Shaitan had his plan in influencing her. And she said, now, what is the punishment of somebody who wants to seduce your wife? So she threw the blame onto Yusuf alayhi salam. But Yusuf alayhi salam did not keep quiet. We see in verse 26, he said, it was she that sought to seduce me from my true self. So he stood up for himself. And one of our household saw this and bore witness thus. So somebody in the house saw this, and he gave a suggestion as to how to rectify this scenario. He said, if it be that his shirt is rent from the front, then is her tale true, and he is a liar. But if it be that the shirt is torn from the back, Then is she the liar and he is telling the truth? So when they examined the shirt and they saw it it was torn at the back. So when they saw his shirt that it was torn at the back, her husband said, "Behold, it is a snare of your woman. Truly mighty is your snare." So he realized that his wife was wrong. And because Yusuf had a lowly status and his wife was of a high status, at this point in time he said, "O Joseph, O Yusuf alayhi salam, pass this over. O wife, ask forgiveness for thy fault, for truly thou hast been at fault." So he realized his wife has been at fault, and he told her, Yusuf alayhi salam, to pass over this advances made by his wife. We'll continue in section 4 now. So the situation happened, and now the story went out into the society. People were talking. Ladies said in the city, "The wife of the great Aziz is seeking to seduce her slave from his true self. Truly has he inspired her with violent love." So the people started talking. They were making stories that this wife of the Aziz is crazy, madly in love with a slave, and she heard of this. We see she is evidently going astray. When she heard of their malicious talk, she sent for them and prepared a banquet. So when she heard that people were talking about this, she prepared a banquet, and she wanted to show them what it is that she was running after, what was the situation, and they were possibly part of this whole plan as well, but we don't know for sure. She gave each of them a knife, and she said to Yusuf alayhi salam, "Come out before them." When they saw him, they did extol him, and in their amazement cut their hands. They said, "God preserve us. No mortal is this. This is no more than a noble angel." So we see that she gave them a knife and they were cutting the fruit. And while they were cutting the fruit, she called Yusuf out to them to possibly serve them. And when they saw him, they said, "This is not a human being. This is a noble angel." I would just like to read you a translation from Zahurul Haq, quite an interesting take on this verse. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So that when she heard of their plan of extending their help in a crafty way, she sent for them and prepared for them a cushioned couch to relax at the banquet. And she provided each one of them a knife to use in the repast. And she said, "Yusuf, come out in their presence and serve them in the banquet." So when they saw him, they deemed him great in charm, beauty, and dignity. And all of them scuffled and jostled to have fun with him. And in their hustle and tussle, they cut their hands. And they said among them, "Blameless be Allah. This is no human being to be enticed by us. He is none but a noble angel in beauty and purity, and he did not yield himself to our paragon of beauty." So this is just another translation and another explanation of the repast that Yusuf alayhi salam had to come out to the woman of the city. So coming to verse 32, when she saw them going crazy for Yusuf alayhi salam, she said, "There before you is the man about whom you did blame me. I did seek to seduce him from his true self, but he did firmly save himself guiltless." So she said, "There is a slave who you said I was inspiring with love, and as you saw, you all went crazy for him when you all saw him, but he saved himself guiltless. He didn't fall for my snare." But she didn't stop there. She went further and said, "And now, if he does not my bidding, he shall certainly be cast into prison, and what is more, be of the company of the vilest." So she threatened him to say that if you don't do my bidding, if you do not give in to my advances, I'm going to throw you into prison. Now think about yourself. If you were in the situation, what would you do? But we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals the stories of the prophets to be as examples for us to take lessons. Let's see what happens. He said, "O my Lord, the present is more to my liking than that to which they invite me. Unless you turn away their snare from me, I should in my youthful folly feel inclined towards them and join the ranks of the ignorant. So we see that Yusuf alayhi salam, instead of giving in to her advances, rather made a dua to Allah and says, the prison is more to my liking than that to which they inviting me. So he realized that rather go to prison than displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by committing zina and be ruined forever. So he realized that his spiritual welfare is more important and the most important thing to look after. And then he also went further to say, I am a human being in my youthful folly, I may just slip and get caught up with their advances. So Allah protect me from this snare of the woman. So his Lord listened to him in his prayer and turned away from him their snare. Verily he hears and knows all things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected Yusuf alayhi salam from the snare of this woman, from the temptation of zina. And how did he do this? He put him into prison. Then it occurred to the men, after they had seen the signs, that it was best to imprison him for a time. So as a result of this risk that was being presented to the people of the city, they said it is best to get rid of Yusuf alayhi salam and put him into prison. So we see that this is a very interesting two sections that we did. Yusuf alayhi salam is put into the house of the Aziz, and the Aziz, being a good man, tells his wife that perhaps they can adopt him as a son, and they took him into the house, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught him the interpretation of stories and events and dreams, and he knew how to analyze them properly with his exposure into the house of the Aziz as well as part of the contribution towards that. And then we see that the wife of the Aziz took a liking to him and she wanted to seduce him, and she locked the doors and told him come to her, and then he said, Qala ma'adallah, oh Allah protect me, a'udhu billah, and he ran to the door and they met the husband there, and then she changed the tune to say that, you know what, it was him that wanted to seduce her. And Allah mentions that she desired him, but he would have desired her, but he saw the evidence of Allah. So he protected himself because he knew what was the implication in terms of his service to Allah. So he was a true servant of Allah. He was a mukhlisin. And then a sincere servant of Allah. Then one of the people that were working in the palace said, if the shirt is torn at the back, if the shirt is torn in front, then Yusuf is guilty and the wife is guiltless. But if the shirt is torn at the back, then Yusuf is innocent and the wife is guilty. So when they saw the shirt that it is torn from that it was torn from the back, they realized that the wife was the guilty party, and the husband told Yusuf to overlook this. And then the gossip went out into the town, and people realized that people were talking to say the wife of the Aziz is madly in love with the slave. So what she did is she had a banquet and she gave them fruit with knives, and while they were busy cutting the fruit, she called out Yusuf to them, and when they saw him, in their amazement and in their folly, they cut their fingers and they said, this is a noble angel. And then she threatened Yusuf one more time to say that she told the people, this is who you all accuse me of running after. Now you all see you all the same, just like me. But if he doesn't do what I say, he's going to be thrown into prison. And Yusuf alayhi salam makes a dua that he'd rather go to prison than get caught up in the snare. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected him by putting him into prison. With that, we will conclude the second segment on the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر